Hi all, this is a video to help you with essay number 3, specifically with finding sources for essay number 3 and using those sources in your analysis. I'm joined today by my youngest son Maxwell. He's sitting on my lap while we do this, so hopefully he will not expire. Uh, let's see how it goes. Okay, so I just want to put this together. I've had a couple emails just asking about this for some clarification and as well in the syllabus we originally planned to have a librarian come and talk to us about this issue. So I thought it would be good to talk about this together. In the instructions for the essay, it says for any topic you choose, you must use at least 2 academic texts to help form and support your argument. These texts must come from the Chapey College Library. Regardless of the topic you choose, you must strive to take part in the ongoing conversation rather than merely reiterating information. And this, ties directly to that reading games article we read last week about being part of an academic conversation, responding to and using other people's ideas in your own discussion. And that's what, one of the big things we're practicing in this third essay. It's an important skill that you will be using more and more in your academic careers. So we're going to practice it in this essay by using 2 academic texts. Okay, so how do we do that? The best academic texts to use are not like the ones that are directly about your text, or I mean those are okay, but it's also good to find things that are not directly about, say, the road, right? But about an issue in the road. So, for example, that Manpocalypse article I gave you to look at this week for anybody who's reading the road, that is it's not directly about the road, but it's about the way we talk about survival skills, the way we talk about the apocalypse as this masculine endeavor that in this article could be very useful for thinking about masculinity and gender in the road, right? It's not directly about the road, but it's about that issue where you can tie it together. So that's what you kind of want to look for. Similar to the other article I gave the students who are working on post-humanism. It's called, what is it called? Why I Want to Be a Post-Human When I Grow Up, I think is what it's called. It's not directly about any of the stories we've read, um, but it is about, it's this optimistic look at post-humanism. And it could be useful to bring in the ideas from that essay to think about ideas from your text. The key to doing that is not to try to bring in everything from that article, but to pick out like 1 or 2 ideas that are important ideas in that essay, that secondary essay, and bring them into conversation with the ideas that you're looking at in your primary text. Okay, so let's look at how you might find texts. I had where did I have that? Okay, so there's 2 good ways to look for texts. One is using Google, and I do note that you have to use Chafee resources for this paper, but I'll show you this finding um, articles on Google that are more academic, right? Google is a giant database of information. A lot of it's not very good. When I was working on my undergrad, Google was not as much of a research tool. We had to go to the library more often and look up journals and make copies and things like that. A lot of stuff was just transitioning at the point where I was working on my undergraduate degree. But nowadays, internet is where you do all your research. So a way to help you with that is to think about site domains, of course, right? The endings to sites. .com means commercial, so it's people trying to make money. Therefore, it's not necessarily people with ethical reasons for putting information on the web. They just want to sell you things, right? So what you want to look for academic stuff is .edu, sites that end with .edu, or sometimes .gov if you're looking for facts and things like that, or statistics. One thing you can do to get there is go to advanced search, right? If you go to advanced search, you can go down here to site or domain. You can put in exactly what you're looking for, .edu sites, .gov sites, whatever, okay? And then that'll narrow down your search. Or you can just type this into your search bar along with your search terms that you're looking for. Site .edu, and you'll only pull up edu sites. Okay, so I've done that. I've turned on advanced search, or I've typed in site.edu, and I put in article because I want to find an article. My search term is gender. Sorry, there's Maxwell, and post-apocalypse. And remember, if you put them in quotation marks, it will find those exact terms. So then if you scroll down, you can see, okay, not all this stuff is useful. Some of this stuff is like interviews or advertisements for books or things like that. But there is some good stuff. Here's a paper published at William and Mary. So, Working the Garden, Women and Religion in Apocalyptic Fiction. So that would be an interesting, from the title, I mean, it sounds like it might be interesting for the road, right? Women or gender and religion are big things in the road. So that might be interesting. You'd have to read through it. This one, when you come down here, I mean, it's published on EDU site, but here's the thing: it's not really an academic article. Oh, it's okay, buddy. It's a bachelor, it's a BA thesis, right? So it's probably not suitable for advanced academic work, right? This is an advanced student, but it's not really an academic article, right? But one thing interesting about something like this is you might come down here to, oh, it's okay, down to the works cited area. Let me go down there. Go down to the works cited. You might find articles that are super useful. So here's something on Margaret Atwood's dystopian fiction, right? That might be interesting. Oh, here you go. Feminism, Deep Ecology, and Environmental Ethics. That might be interesting if you want to write about something like that. So there is, oh, what's this one? Oh, your God is a racist, sexist, homophobic, and a misogynist. Our God is change. Interesting. About Afrofuturism. That could be fun, maybe. Anyway, so that's a good thing to use that for. I don't know if the article itself will be interesting or this is more of a thesis, but anyways, that's how you use Google to find things, right? You can look for specific site domains, and that'll help you narrow down to look for academic sources. The other thing that you want to do for this essay, especially, is go to the library. You can go to ebooks. You can look for ebooks, right? You can type in apocalyptic fiction, things like that, or you can come to the articles and database. We have a lot of databases that we pay a lot of money to get, and these will take you directly to academic articles if you use them correctly. A good one to use is academic search. A lot of these aren't relevant for us right now, like what's this, Country Watch. I don't think that's going to be very useful, but geography and current politics. For us, I would strongly suggest academic search and JSTOR. JSTOR is the go-to one for people in English and humanities. It's what I used to use all the time when I was in grad school and undergrad, right? This is JSTOR. It's not got the best search bar, but let's see. Post-apoc lips. And let's look up gender again. It's okay, buddy. It's okay, Maxwell. It's okay. Oh, let me go back actually. Because we want articles, so you can narrow things down so that you're not wasting your time. Okay, that's good enough for now. Hold on a second. I'll finish my video. Sans child. Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, look at this. Zombie apocalypse. Can the undead teach the living how to survive in an emergency? Not really about gender, but could be interesting. You can see some of these are, they're academic articles, so they're written for very specific readerships about very specific topics. So it's going to take some looking through here, right, to find stuff that might be useful. Narrative closure in Whitehead's Zone 1. And see, one of the things too about these is like, you might think, oh, I don't even know who that is. Who's Colson Whitehead? What Zone 1? It might not be useful, but there might be ideas in there that you could take and use to explore the road, right? Or the same one here. This one is about a different text, DayZ, but it could be interesting ideas that you could then take and use to talk about our text. Let's take a look at that one. Gender and viral marketing. Interesting. Oh, here you go. Contemporary zombie texts and theories. That might be a little more general about more than just one specific text that you're not really interested in. So that could be interesting. Well, okay, let's leave it there for now. You can play around with the search bar, of course. So when you're looking at these kind of texts, as we saw in that reading games article, one of the things you want to look at, one of the big things is the abstract. This is where I go. If if I was working on this, if I were working on this project and I was doing my research, I would do exactly what I'm doing right now. Play with some search terms in JSTOR, see what comes up, start looking through stuff. But I wouldn't read the whole article. That would be crazy, right? This is how long is this? This is an 18-page article. I'm not going to read an 18-page article because it might be useful for a project that I have due in 2 or 3 weeks, right? I'm going to read the abstract and make my decision right away. So this is about a video game. Interesting. So it sounds like an interesting game. I'm not sure if it's going to be interesting for my paper or useful because it doesn't seem to. Okay, so here's the thesis. I argue that the video game DayZ is an engaging representation of the zombie apocalypse, more so than any. It might be useful. I seems to be really involved in video game theory, so I'm gonna say probably no. Let's take a look at this one. And this one doesn't offer us an abstract, unfortunately, so we have to kind of scan through a little bit. But here we go. Look for terms like this, right? Phrasing like this. This essay attempts to address blah, 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 right? Because this author is trying to tell you what the thesis and the purpose of the essay is. So let's see if they get to the point quickly. This essay attempts to address what Bell Hooks refers to as the film's violent erasure of black womanhood. Okay, so if you want to think about race and ideas like that in The Road, this could be interesting. It's definitely going to be critiquing the erasure of black characters in post-apocalyptic narratives. You could, if you want, write about race in The Road. It doesn't. It's not a big theme in the book, which could be interesting to think about. Why is it not a big? Why is it not a big theme? Does that mean that the author assumes that everybody is, white or some other race? So that could be an interesting thing to look at. And she's interested in life and death choices of survivors and what these characters specifically choose to call from their recent past the rebuilding of a new post-apocalyptic civilization. Okay, that's interesting. Will Western hegemony continue? Does Western hegemony continue? Notice we were talking about that word in the reading games article. Interesting. I'm not sure if that's useful either, but you can see I'm not going to read the whole thing. She didn't give us an abstract, but in her introduction, she lays out her thesis in a number of different ways, right? She's telling you exactly what she's trying to explore. She's going to get much more specific in these next sections where she jumps into specific texts, right? But that's as far as I would go. I would just read those first 3 paragraphs and decide right away yes or no, okay? Because we don't have time to read tons of stuff, right? But if I decide to use that, this would be a great article to use if I'm exploring certain themes, because even though it's not talking about the road, it doesn't seem to be about the road at all. It's going to be talking about other texts that are similar and talking about similar ideas. And then I want to bring those ideas into conversation with what I'm trying to explore in the road. Okay, so let's see what we find. Oops. I'm sorry. Let's see what we find in Academic Search Premier. If I still had that open. Oh, I have to sign in. Academic Search Premier. Oh, actually, we've run out of time on the video, so I don't want to take too long with this, but there's some ideas. Here's Academic Search Premier. Again, you can narrow this down. Post-apocalypse, gender, and see what you get. Okay, again, academic article is what you want to look for, right? found some of the same results. Okay.